there, welcome back to the channel. Well, I've been thinking recently about what is it that motivates people to want to start writing using typewriters. I've had this discussion a number of times with people I meet, especially at type-ins, where you meet people from the general public who aren't necessarily in the inner circle of typewriter usage, but they're just curious about how do you come to the point where you want to write with a typewriter, especially when you meet people whose memory of using typewriters was less than optimal. Maybe they remember all those term papers they had to type in high school, or they had a job where they had to type. They remember all the problems with corrections, and making a perfect document was real work. So that's a good question. I thought I would go through my thought process with you today about what motivates a person to want to write with a typewriter. Stay tuned. Okay, let's suppose you start out with a really big Venn diagram. And this diagram is all people who want to write. Within that diagram, you're going to have a smaller group of all people who want to write to paper, right? They want to use paper, at least in the initial writing process. Now, the larger group of people who don't want to write to paper, you might have a subgroup of them who want to write to chalkboards or marker boards. And you might say that there's some overlap between this and writing to paper because it's both using handwriting. So you might want to call these their own group of handwriting, perhaps. And then everything else outside of these would be writing to some digital medium. Okay, within this subcategory of people who want to write to paper, you're going to have a subgroup of people for whom handwriting, which we'll call HW, is slow or sloppy or painful, maybe, right? In other words, they want to use the process of using paper as their initial creative process, but either their handwriting is too slow to keep up with their thoughts, or their handwriting is just really sloppy, or it's just uncomfortable to do so. And so I think within this subgroup of people is the world of the typewriter. People who use typewriters to write with. They want to write to paper as the initial phase of a larger writing process, but for some reason handwriting is too slow, sloppy, or painful, and they still want to write to paper. That's where the typewriter is probably the only solution for those who want to write to paper but not write by hand. Now, we should probably expand on this handwriting is too slow, sloppy, or painful category, because there may be other motivations for why, even though you want to write to paper, you don't want to use handwriting. And it could be aesthetic reasons. It just could be that you are attracted to the machines themselves. So this is like a mechanical kind of a reason. And you could probably think of a lot of other reasons. Maybe you just don't like writing. It's just a preference, right? You don't like handwriting as much. Preference, just a preference to use typewriters. Whatever the reason, right? This group of people who want to write to paper, who want to write, are drawn to mechanical writing to paper, because that's about the only other option there is to write to paper other than handwriting itself. In lieu of some of the contemporary technological innovations, we should probably also make this other distinction here. We'll make a Venn diagram here, and these are people who want to write by hand. Okay, and you can write by hand on paper, chalkboards and marker boards, and also some of the new digital devices that have handwriting recognition. There's a number of dedicated e-ink tablet devices on the market now where you can write by hand and save the image as like a PDF file, or it'll do handwriting recognition and turn it into a text file, or a combination thereof. But so there is that other category. So they're not going to get into the typewriters because they're into handwriting, but they might want it digitally. So that's an interesting development on the whole Venn diagram of writing. We have this large Venn diagram of people who choose to write with typewriters. Well, there's a number of motivations besides just they want to write and they want to write to paper. There's a number of these. So let's list them. So it could be that they like mechanical objects. They're interested in typewriters because they're mechanical objects, right? They like tinkering, they just like fiddling with them, and they're intricate and they're fun. There's another element where people like the fact that they are antiques. These are antique lovers. Typewriters have a long history. They represent a significant part of the 20th century, which also gets into there is a historical reason why people might want to use typewriters, or why they might want to collect typewriters. They're interested in them from a historical standpoint. And keeping in mind, these categories are not individual isolated categories. There's a huge amount of overlap. Typical typewriter user has a number of these motivations, right? So then there's also the aesthetic reasons. Typewriters just have a cool aesthetic about them. They can function as decor, right? There's a decor subset, and they just look neat on your desk, on a bookshelf. There's also the appreciation of different eras of typewriters for their aesthetic appearance. And then there is the connection between typewriters and 20th century literature, right? The fact that some of your favorite authors might have used certain typewriters. There's a connection with that, right? And then there are people who enjoy typing. We might call them typists. Like the physical act of fingers upon keys is highly pleasurable. It's enjoyable. Threading a piece of paper into a machine, the sound of the ratcheting of the line advance and the tapping of the keys and the bell at the end of the line, all of that is highly pleasurable. Even the smell of the machine and the ink. And then you might say, well, there are a number of people who are writers and they just want to write to paper. And this category of people who are mainly motivated by that is what we're talking about here. They want to write to paper for at least the initial part of the writing process, and they prefer to do so mechanically rather than by hand. That's what these are. But all of these categories are really kind of mixed up. They're all overlapped. There's a large overlap between all of this. Like the typical typewriter user like you or I, we have multiple reasons, maybe all of these reasons for why we enjoy using typewriters. And we probably should add here another category, another reason is a huge reason, and that is curiosity. Oh, my marker is dead. Let's try this one. Curiosity. Right? This is what draws a lot of newcomers to typewriters. They are curious about them. Or maybe they've never seen them before. Maybe they're young and they didn't grow up with them. Oh my goodness, a mechanically intricate device that prints letters to paper by hand. There's a huge element of curiosity that gets us involved into typewriters in the first place. So another thing I thought about is what motivates people to want to collect typewriters, right? So here is the Venn diagram of people who have or use at least one typewriter. And for many of these people, though, one typewriter fills the need, right? Whether that's to write or as a piece of decor or a piece of history or family history maybe, but for a lot of other people, there are good reasons in their mind why you might want to have more than one typewriter. Part of that could be maybe dissatisfaction, right? Dissatisfaction with the one typewriter you have. This could be mechanical dissatisfaction. It could be the touch of the machine, or it could be the features, right? You discover maybe there's other typewriters with better touch, better mechanics, better features. Another reason might be curiosity. You have one typewriter and, oh, I'm curious about that kind of typewriter. What does that do? What does that feel like? And that gets into the subject matter of variety. You discover that it's kind of fun to have a variety of typewriters, right? For instance, portables, standards, electrics, maybe Europeans or from one specific country of origin. So another thing is discovery. Right? You are in a thrift store, antique store somewhere, and all of a sudden, boom, there is the discovery of a typewriter, and maybe it looks like it's in good shape and the price is right. Maybe that's a good motivation to get more than one typewriter. And another reason that a lot of people might get more than one typewriter is focus. They are into one brand or model, and maybe they want to collect all the colors and all the different years of that model. And of course, this is not an exhaustive list by any means, but I would throw out another big reason is psychological need. And this was illustrated to us by our friend Tom Hanks, who said that the reason why he collected hundreds of typewriters was really to fulfill a deep-seated psychological need that goes all the way back to his childhood, and now in the later part of his career he feels that need has been satisfied, and now he's giving away a lot of his typewriters. And another reason, though, that people might want to collect more than one typewriter is a sense of community. Like, they get a typewriter, they get onto a Facebook group to discover more about their typewriter, and they discover there's a whole community out there of people who love typewriters, love each other, and collect typewriters, and that draws them in to become part of that community deeper in, and therefore get more typewriters. So this is not certainly an exhaustive list, but you might recognize at least one of these reasons, and I would wager probably many of these reasons why you have more than one typewriter. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little soiree into marker pens and Venn diagrams, thinking about the community of people out there who enjoy using typewriters for a variety of reasons. And if you have any other ideas that I left out of my Venn diagrams, drop a note down below, please. I'd love to hear from you. And if you like the videos I've been making, please like this video and consider subscribing to this channel. It really does help me to be able to make more of these in the future. Thank you. And as always, I wish you the very best. Stay creative. Have yourselves a great day. Bye-bye for now.